Okay, now when it comes to auditory, this is very different from visual. Auditory learners, or the auditory sensory channel, benefit most from traditional lecture teaching. They like to hear all of the information that they absorb. They absorb spoken and discussed information rather than seeing it or actually feeling it. Auditory learners succeed when directions are read aloud to them, when they can actually hear them in detail. And they might question to get the specific details, which again they want to hear. They like speeches and information that is presented in an auditory form or that they request verbally. They also tend to be very talkative themselves. Now, some common characteristics of an auditory rep system is that they may talk to themselves. Now, I'm not saying this in a form of madness, like they're not talking to themselves in a crazy way, but what they'll typically do is, for example, if you give them a document, they will read it back to themselves so that they can hear it. Or if they have an issue, you may hear them talking because they're actually discussing the situation with themselves so that they can hear it, so that they can think about it and respond to it. And one of my best friends actually is very auditory. And when he's thinking about something in depth, he'll talk. Random words will come out because he's actually thinking about it, but he's sort of talking to himself at the same time. And occasionally words will pop out. So if you ever hear somebody talking to themselves, usually it's fairly intelligent people who are really thinking in depth about something, and they'll go very quiet, but actually they're sort of having a conversation with themselves. Again, as I said, not in a crazy way, but they're having a discussion with themselves to really think through and finalize the finer details of things. Also, when you give them documents, they'll read it, their lips will move. They might even read instructions back. If you give them a comment or an instruction or a question, they might actually rephrase it and give it back to you. They'll also be very distracted by noise. So in the last video, I was talking about visual, where they're not very distracted by noise. However, the auditory sensory channel and auditory learners, they are distracted by noise. So they will be the first ones to close the door if there is a noise outside, people talking or any form of noise that's in the background. They'll want to get rid of that so they can focus on listening to what they have to be listening to and want to be listening to at that present time. But also, auditory learners are really good listeners. So in a negotiation, if you are dealing with an auditory learner, they will be listening to every single word that you say, more so than a visual or a kinesthetic, because that's what they've been brought up on. They are fine-tuned to picking up every word because they're auditory. They also love music and language. They're really good linguists. So if you spot any of these traits, they could well be an auditory sensory channel. They also like to be verbally rewarded by praise. For example, with visual learner, they like to see the praise in lights. They like to see their scoreboard and their commission or whatever it is. If they've done really well, they like to see it on a chart, on a graph. But an auditory learner wants to hear it like, well done, that was really great, fantastic, great job. They like to hear it more than seeing it. It means more to them because they absorb it better. Okay, so that's the auditory learner. Next, we're going to be looking at the kinesthetic learner or the kinesthetic sensory channel. See you in the next video.